Good afternoon, everyone. This is Queenie Clem with Queenie's Book Talk and Reviews, and I am your literary ambassador. And today we have a special guest, Dr. Colleen K. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you?
I am fine, thank you. I'm blessed to be here. Thank you.
Okay. Please introduce yourself to the readers.
I am Colleen K, and I am an author, a mother of five. I'm married. I have been a professor at the university. I am also the church health minister at my church, and I've been in the States for over 30 years.
Wow, wow. What inspired you to write Miraculous Favor and the Power of Prayer? And how did Marcella's story came to life for you?
Well, what inspired me was basically I have traveled quite a bit. And when I begin to talk about my stories and the people I've been involved in and the places I've been, remember, this was in the 80s before cell phone.
Mhm.
And so in those conversations, I'm always told, write something, write something, write something. So that was what inspired me on the physical sense.
Mhm.
But on the spiritual sense of it, I've been, the Holy Spirit called me to write about um, events that I've witnessed and things that have happened because it would be of help to someone out there. And that is what, because miracles happens every day.
Mhm.
But many times we are blind to it. We're not focused. We're too busy. We have so much going on. There is the computer, the phone, your family, and everything. So we tend not to look at it the way we should. I mean, small miracles, little things, that you don't expect that happens. So that is what inspired me to write that.
Okay. Can you share more of Marcella's journey from poverty in Jamaica to achieving her goal? And what was the theme of the book?
Oh, mm. First, let me say that throughout this novel, I was led by the Holy Spirit to relate my experience and those of the people I've known. And I use certain scriptures and verses to demonstrate how the words of God is alive and well today. Okay. I tried to, it's taken me quite a few years to do this because I've been busy teaching and everything. And I tried to relate the protagonist, that's the main person's faith, or constant prayer that she had. And first time it was because of the trial she was having, the tribulation she was having, and her need, what she wanted. And that moved to praise and thanksgiving later on when things begin to come together.
Mhm.
And how her relationship with God led by that tiny voice, that internal nudge that she later believed was the Holy Spirit, guided her, protected her throughout her life. And that indicated to her that regardless of what happened to her, there was God was there, her protector was there.
Mhm.
And she was, I think I wrote that she was able to know whether things were good or bad, who was for her, who was against her with that, right? And she was, although she considered herself undeserving at times, and unaware. The point here is to believe that anything is possible and be open to miracles because God chooses, who God chooses is not easily understood. In the novel, she traveled from her birthplace in Jamaica to England, to the United States, then to Central America, and to Africa. She describes her journey, how she got there, why, and relates her hardship and her all the things that she had experienced.
Mhm.
And it was her unshakable faith that got her through the circumstances, it seemed. So that was a brief over, overview because even when things seemed unsurmountable, she was able to um, come up and go past. and move on, giving praise. So I think that that is the outline, that is in book one, the book that I have today. Because her journey when she got to Africa, and then she'll be coming back to the state in book two, which I hope you'll invite me to when we get to book two.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay, the book emphasizes the transformation power of faith. How do you personally view the role of faith in overcoming challenges based on your own experiences and the stories you encounter in your career?
Faith. Mm. I believe that one has to believe first. You have to have a belief. And with that belief, then you have to have a relationship. The most important thing is that relationship. You have to have a relationship with God. You have to have a relationship that's not fractured or splintered, but it's like in a marriage, every day, every time you need, not just when you need somebody, but when to be there all the time. It's a constant relationship that builds within itself. And with that, faith grows because the things that we pray for and we ask for, and the things that even things that we don't know about, doors open for us that we have no idea. For one instance, let me tell you what happened. I was attending Emory University, and I wanted to enter the Master of Public Health program. And I went for the interview, and they said to me at the time that they couldn't have me in because there were certain things that was missing, my NCAT and all those other things that you need to get in. And I went home and I was praying about it. And the next day, after they told me I couldn't get in, the next day the director of the program called me and said, we rethink what we had said earlier, and we'd love to have you in the program. So that is what I've experienced in my own life. And there's other things, many other things that occur, but that's me.
Oh, wow. Now, Marcella faces isolation, racism, and loneliness in her quest for success. How do you approach addressing these sensitive topics in the book, and what message do you hope readers to take away from the story?
I think that the message that I hope them to take away is that anything is possible if you believe and you have faith. Work, and I also said in the book that work without death. If you don't work, for instance, if you sit on your house, right, and you're waiting for the Lord to do something for you, no, it won't happen. We have to get out there. We have to start at working on what we want. And then from then we can move on, because then the Lord will open doors for us so we can move forward. You see, I said, the way I said it, and one of my pastors said, you said work without faith without work is death. That's what I said. And that's because, for instance, if you don't go out to work, what are you going to do? Starve? You're not going to eat. You're not, so you're not going to move forward. You're not going to prosper. And he wants to give us an abundance of everything that's happening.
Love is the central theme in Marcella's life, particularly her marriage to an American diplomat. How does the narrative explore the idea that love conquers all?
Mm-hmm. Ooh, love conquers all. It doesn't. It doesn't. But it is an essential part of the relationship, right? In the book, where the book ends at this point, it is that love conquers all, and we're able to move forward. But love within itself, it takes more than just love. There are, when you say love thy neighbor, for instance, love your friends, love people who are against you, who are wicked to you, who are, all those things. Do you love them? Does love conquer the way you feel? You have to consider the human factors in the relationship. right? But in this book, it appears that love conquers all. She's in love, she's over the moon. All of a sudden, Marcella finds herself in a place where she has never been before and could never think of getting into. You know, she's marrying a person who's becoming. He wasn't an American diplomat when they met, but then later on he applied and he was able to become successful. And they moved abroad first into Central America and then into Africa. You know, the longest stay was in Africa. So love makes it a lot easier, and love makes you, in some instance, blind to things that you may not be aware of or you're not focusing on because it's that high. It's that high. It's happy. That's
Okay.
how that.
Can you read an excerpt from your book, please?
Yes. I will going to read. When Marcella arrived in Africa, she describes what she saw and what she felt and what she heard and all the sound using the five senses. Okay. So I will go and read the sound. And it states, foreign to her ear were the sounds coming from the crowd. People were speaking in many unfamiliar and different dialects. Marcella imagined that the sound was similar to that heard at Babel in Genesis 11:9. Where in the Bible the people were speaking one language and the Lord confused their language so that different nations began to speak in different languages. The exchange of words was often accompanied by gestures of the hands on a facial movement that ranged from joy, disdain, unbelief, and rejection that was beautifully orchestrated. She witnessed this as a demonstration of a carefully orchestrated piece of music that was used to express displeasure with airport workers or express joy at reuniting with family or friends. To comprehend that these people's use of hands and facial gestures was familiar, as observed amongst her families in England, Jamaica, America, and made her come to the realization that certain traits and mannerisms had withstood the separation of the people from their culture. So much was different and yet the same. Should I go on?
Wow. You can go on.
Oh, while her family showed discomfort experiencing the heat of the African sun and longed for an icy drink, air conditioned, and a seat for their weary bones, Marcella was enjoying the bright sun that came with a breeze and bluest sky. She was transfixed by the sight of the people around them, who moved in and out of the airport with such ease and agility, their bodies seeming to move with a secret rhythm, familiar to her senses, yet new to her eyes. On the way to their apartment, she witnessed scenes of vendors selling fruits, vegetables, cooked food from an array of roadside vehicles and stalls. In the heavy traffic, she felt as if she was in a revolving circle of transportation that would cause harm to the pedestrian who crossed and walked through the moving traffic, causing some near misses that were often accompanied by an exchange of shouting and admonishment from both parties, but there was never any injury. She was fascinated by the driver's skill and their ability to maneuver Legacy Street. The scene reminded her of traffic around the Eiffel Tower in Paris, but much more chaotic.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Okay. Divine intervention and miracles are elements in the story. How can you share a specific miracle from Marcel's story?
Pacific miracle. I think one of the biggest miracle that Marcel talked about was arriving in Africa, right? And that I've just said that. And then also overcoming what she believed was evil intent before the birth of her son. In that respect, you choose which one would you like? And in the in the birth of her son during the pregnancy, she had preeclampsia, right? That is an increase in hypertension, swelling in the legs and the feet and everything. And a lot of African American Black women world over suffer that because of our diet and what we eat and our increased obesity. But not always obesity. Sometimes it's just something that happens with us when we're pregnant. We have that extra fluid. And so she had a threatened pregnancy all the time that she was pregnant. She was placed on bed rest for months after, so to make sure that she didn't give birth to the child too early.
Mm-hmm.
And but she had so many issues during that time, both spiritual and physical. And at the end, she was very, very pleased and she was very happy. And she was praising God because she gave birth to a child that was healthy apart from, minor illnesses, which held him in the ICU for a couple of weeks while she went back and forth and breastfeeding him. But to have that healthy child after all those things, she considered it one of the biggest miracles that she had of human life.
Okay. The title mentions power of prayer. How has prayer played a role in your own life and career?
Ooh, I pray all the time.
Me too.
I never stop praying. But I don't pray in public. So that has been something I'm trying to do because I'm called upon to pray.
Mm-hmm.
But prayer has gotten me through so much. And I can't say that I always prayed. I didn't. I can't say I've always thought this way. I didn't. There were times in my life when, I was growing up and I was doing the carnal things that all my friends were doing when you're younger and you're unaware and you don't know the truth. You don't know the wrong or the right. You haven't read the Bible enough. I go to church, I listen to the pastor, and after Sunday service, I'm done. We wait till next Sunday again, like many of my friends still do. But now that is just the icing on the cake, where I get the explanation and the pastor is able to relate things that I may not understand. But my relationship with my maker, my relationship with the one who gave me breath, that is most important to me. And so I keep that relationship tight to me. Doesn't matter where I am. My husband keeps saying, why do you always have to be playing religious music in the car? He wants to turn it on for jazz. So we get through those. And if he was here, he would agree with me. And so that has been me because I know what God has done for me. And because of that, I am well thankful for all that I have.
Okay. The book touches on the theme of overcoming odds. What message do you hope to convey to the readers who may be facing challenges or feeling overwhelmed by life difficulties?
Be still. Be still and know I am God. When you pray and when you're asking for something, my message is that many of us, and I did that too, my prayer started from my needs. And it's not just about your needs. What it should be about is about praising and recognizing God for who He is first. And then second, recognizing and knowing what He can do, His power. And that is all encompassing, is everywhere. And with that knowledge and having that relationship with God, that makes it so much easier for when you know who you're dealing with, right? When you have that respect, when you have that, when you're in awe of that person, at that point, then you bow down and you surrender. You surrender, and when you surrender, things begins to change. So with prayer, adoration, and knowledge of who God is, then comes your needs and the needs of others around you. So one of the mistakes that people makes was all that it's like, oh Lord, I need this, or you want material things. We should never pray for our material things. We should pray for blessing because God knows what you need before you know it. And before you know, He already knows. And sorry, I'm not supposed to be preaching. You're asking me questions.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
You know, the Father knows even before you know, because He knew what you were before you were born. He knew what you were before you were formed in your mother's womb. And so, because of that, who are we to come forward and say, I've never really, at the beginning of my book, this book, Marcella prayed for the things that she needed, the material things, right? And she got there, but in her journey, she was always cognizant of the fact that who she was praying to, right? And she didn't only pray for those things, she prayed for people. And it's important to pray for people, for nations, for family, even your enemies. He said, draw your enemies close. Pray for them. Pray for them because God can change how they see you.
Yes, yes. Can you share any practical advice or steps readers can take to incorporate the principles discussed in the book?
Principles. Ooh. When you say principles in the book, the principles for the steps one should take is to take time, be patient, be patient in all that we do, be patient because God's time is not our time. And because of that, many of us will be disenchanted or upset when things don't go our way. And that is not how the Holy Spirit works. That is not how God works. It's always in His time. So one of the things I always say to people is just take time, be still, know who He is, and pray without ceasing. Just keep praying. Praying for what you need, praying for the needs of people, praying for the needs of family, praying for and work. Work. One of the principles is you have to make it happen. He's not going to come through the door and give it to you and say, here. You yourself has had to work for what you have. And as you work for what you have got or you have now, the icing on the cake has been those things that you never expected. You never expected it to happen, but it happens. Those are the little miracles. Those are the little miracles that people don't think about. It's not, my book is not about big miracles. It's about the things, how God can give us things and make us so that we are a blessing to others. Right. And so those are some of the principles, prayer, adoration, work, right? Faith, and be still and wait. Because it will come if that's what He chooses to. It's not what we want all the time. And I think some people are disappointed when things don't go their way. But we don't know what tomorrow brings. We really don't know what tomorrow brings. So those are the things that I would say are very important. And those are principles that I had for myself. And I tried to put those things into the production, into the main character in the book so that this comes through.
Okay. Now tell us about your publishing journey.
It's a bear. It's big. Publishing. So I've seen some people say, "Oh, it was a nice journey." No, it was not. It was not. It was the publishing was the big bear, the big bear. That was the editing, the editing. Lots of editing after you've written. And then there's the formatting, and then there's getting your book out to be published and finding the people who would publish, the publisher or Amazon and all those folks. And then the little bear or the bear cub was the writing. And the writing was, I wrote during the time that many of these scenes that I talked about was because I kept a diary. And when I say a diary, the diary was not so much about what I was doing, but it is what I was seeing and my interaction with people and my interaction with friends. Because it's been said to me, those who read the book, how do you remember these things? I wrote them down. This was not a time of taking pictures. When I went to Africa, when I was in Central America, when I was in England, I kept writing about people and the characters and everything and what they experienced and everything. And that helped me to form this character throughout the book. So that was one of the processes that I used. But the little bear cub was the writing. It wasn't easy, but it was, at the end of it, there was a joy in there to know that I had completed something, if that makes sense. There was a joy of knowing, oh, I completed another book. And I didn't have a professor over my head telling me, change this, change that, change the other, like I did for my dissertation. You see, so that was the joy of writing it and knowing that I'm hoping that the book itself will help somebody, because what I try to do, I try to mesh verses and give scriptures in it as Marcel goes through different trials and tribulations and joy and happiness.
What has been your greatest accomplishment thus far in your writing career?
Publishing this book thus far. That's publishing the book. And being on it so far, being on this show, yes. Those are those has been my greatest accomplishment, because although it was released, I haven't really had the opportunity, the time to really market the book. So that's where I am right now. But I intend to work more at that.
How would you describe your writing style?
I'm told that I'm a wordsmith, and I didn't know what that was until somebody told me. The way I write, I sit and I think, and then I just let it flow. I write, and then I go back and I edit. And then after editing, I read, and there's things missing, so I fill in the blanks. And then when I think I've finished, then I call on a friend and I said, read this and tell me what you think about it. And then they give me information, and then I go back to it again. So my style is one of coming back to writing, making an outline, and then coming back and going back and forth until I think I have filled in all the blanks and it makes sense. It flows. The writing flows. So I don't know what you actually, if there's a word for that, but that is the way I write when I write.
Okay. As an author with a background in healthcare, how do you incorporate your professional expertise into your writing?
In this book, the only instant where I talk about healthcare was at the beginning when I was working as a nurse in England and having to leave that to go to the university, right? And then later on discussing the signs and symptoms of preeclampsia, right? So that was the only thing that I used in this book one. But it will be more how should I say? It will be, but I'll have more of that in book two. It will be more of that in book two because I sort of weave it into the character.
Miraculous Favor and the Power of Prayer is a blend of autobiography and fiction. How can you elaborate on how you balance your personal experiences with fictional elements?
Well, as I said, using my diary that to look at places and people. What I tried very hard to um, use the knowledge of what I've learned, whether it's poverty, racism, family discord, travel, and all those elements that I use in the book, relationship with husband and wife, and then children, and seeking God, all those elements I have purposely brought them in so that in the novel, Marcella deals with these things. She brings them to the fore and talks about them. And that is how I was able to put it together and enrich her character, so to speak, as she journeyed through all these different areas.
Okay. Every writer faces challenges and breakthrough moments in their writing journey. Can you share a specific challenge you encountered while writing this book?
Mm. One of the greatest encounter for me was time. It took 8 years to write this book.
Wow.
It took 8 years. It started in Florida, and one day, one night, while I was praying, it just came to me: you need to write. You need to write what you know. You need to put it on. You write the vision. You write the vision. Kept coming up. Write the vision. Write the vision. Write it. And I didn't want to write it because I would be bringing in people who knew me, and I had to, in writing the book, I had to send the book to, when I write each chapter, if it was somebody was in there, for most of the people, I sent them to look at it before I included it, because it's very sensitive, to put people's what you've learned or what they've shared out there, and yet I'm using it to enrich. I'm not including their names or where they are, but I'm using some of that. And so, that was how I was able to bring that in and make it so it was a question of um, going back to people and asking them permission, letting them read it, and then coming back to say, and when I was finished the final copies, then I sent it back to them again before I went on further. And so that was one of the things. And time, because at the time I was a professor at the university, and the program I was in, I had so many students. At one point, I had 100 and something students, and they were giving me work every. It's like they submitted something on Monday, they submit something on Wednesday. So by the time I get to grade this, it was time again. So my weekends and evenings and that was always too busy. I just didn't have the time. So I just let it wait. And finally I said, I'm going to quit and focus more on my writing. And since that's how this book was completed in a couple of months. So,
Wow. So what's next for you as an author? Are there any upcoming projects that you're excited to explore in the future?
well, this book I broke it into two parts because when I originally submitted the book to the editor, they said it was too long. You have to be famous to have a book of 200 pages plus. So I said, okay. So they said it has to be small, paperback, and so people can afford it and buy it. So I broke it. This is book one, and book two continues with Marcella's return to the US and her journey forth and her search that she searches. Her search is a spiritual search more than a physical search, the trials and tribulation that she goes through. In book two, give you a little bit, she has a calling on her life and she runs. She runs. Or should I say she's disobedient? She runs.
And when
So
does
I,
go ahead.
She's disobedient. When you say disobedient, it means that you're not listening. You hear it, you're told, and what do? You ignore it because you think, it's not important and you're too busy. But what happened is that it's like a deja vu because you're running and somebody will come and remind you of it. And that person don't know you. And you see all along the way where you're meeting people who's reminding you and telling you, and you don't know them. And these are some of the things that I'm bringing into book 2.
Okay. So where can readers find you and your books?
Well, I have a website, drcolleenk.org, and that's on Squarespace. I also have bringing in the nursing medical side of it. I've also started an online teaching program that looks at metabolic syndrome, which is very high in African American and Hispanics, and that is a compilation of hypertension, obesity, truncal obesity around the middle, and hypertension and high cholesterol, and that will lead to diabetes and cancer and other problems that we have. And I'm actually on the American National Black Nurses Association, and we write briefs that we take to Washington each year to the senators and everyone to discuss health issue that impacts African American in the whole of the United States. So I take some of what I have to research to compile those briefs, those type of briefs, and I put some of those in there because I think that's very important for us to have that information to help the people and help others. Because I'm not here for me. I've always worked for the good of my sisters and my brothers and others. So that is where I am right now. So that is what I plan to do in the future.
Okay.
And my takeaway message is just have faith, believe, take time, and pray, because it will come. It will come, but you have to have that relationship. Without that relationship, there's nothing there. You can't turn up one day and say, I'm praying, I'm saved, etc. You ain't saved. You ain't saved at all. Or should we say, Patwa, you're not saved. You think you're saved, but you're not saved at all. That's the Jamaican way.
All right. Can you show us your book cover?
Oh, yes. It is here. Oops.
All right.
Okay, that's my book. Thank you so much.
And when will book 2 be out?
Well, I was waiting until I spent a little bit of time marketing or getting this first book out because I didn't want them to cross. So I'm thinking that maybe in the fall or later this year, I would bring the other book out. That will give me time to really put it together. You see. So that's
Well,
right.
thank you for coming in today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me, Queenie Clem, and for bringing readers and writers together and making it possible for us to share our work and our process that we go through to bring our books to you. Thank you so much.
All right. This is Queenie Clem with Queenie's Book Talk and Reviews. Happy reading. Bye, y'all.
Bye. Bye.